Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our new guest, David Luján. We're here to break down Nerida Book 1 Landlock and everything in between. And man, we are not stuck at sea. We are getting ready to land on land. David, welcome to the stream. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, we are hyping this morning up with some awesome indie comics. But before we do, let's begin with the basics. David, who are you and how did you get into creating comics?
My name is David, or David Luján. If you feel like trying to challenge yourself with pronunciation.
Those are already my weak suit.
yeah. I mean, I have like a really Spanish sounding name, like David Adrián Luján. That's pretty ethnic. But my Spanish is very weak. Should be better. I'm from Austin, Texas. I've been publishing comics for almost a year now, and I've got this is my second second campaign that's launching with Lesser Known Comics and Mark Bernal over there, and yeah, super stoked about it. I'm gonna be doing a bunch of cons this year, and everything's rolling for me kind of quickly. So.
Yeah, big shout out to Mark from Lesser Known Comics. We had him on the show previously. An awesome sit down there as well. You know, how did you two end up meeting?
Well, I sent him a really, really unprofessional DM on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey, I make comics, and you want to put my comic out for me?" And he surprisingly got back and was like, "Yes, this is cool looking, man. Let's see what we can do." So we got together and started working on the Yuriko campaign, which was last September, and that was the vampire thing, and that worked out great. And so we moved on, and now this is the mermaid one, Nerida. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. So
what was that other book about? Give us a little bit of kind of about the concept and the creative team involved with it.
So Yuriko is like a historical fiction kind of thing. It's a vampire comic that is supposed to supplement the novel that I wrote of the same title.
That's so cool.
About a Korean vampire. It's set in Seoul. Like the comic is set in Seoul around 1900, kind of turn of the century, when industrialization was starting to happen. It's very stark. It's very black and white, noir kind of thing. That book is not in color. And it was actually, I wasn't planning to do it as a comic book at all. I wrote like 200 pages of prose, and I thought, oh, this would be cool, but I don't know anything about novels. I know about comic books a little bit. I was like, what if I made some supplemental comics to go with it? So I'm making 5 issues. It's kind of like a mini series that will go alongside, hand in hand with the book. So if you read the book and you read the comics, they all have information that they need from each other, but they can operate independently from each other as well. So yeah.
Two things. Wow, a Korean vampire flick, or book. I've never heard of that. I've heard of plenty of vampire films, plenty of books, plenty of Korean books, but I've never heard of like a Korean vampire one. What was your inspiration and drive for that?
Man, I'm like a huge fan of Korean horror films. So, like Old Boy.
Oh God, that's so good. Yes.
Lady Vengeance. Yeah, exactly. And I saw one called Bakjui, which is called Thirst, and it's a Korean vampire film, but it's set kind of in modern times. And it's got that Korean like kind of slapstick almost comedy that's happening, but it's also super scary. The story's awesome. Plenty of blood and gore and all that kind of thing. And I thought, man, that's really cool. I haven't heard too much more. So I looked it up, and there are quite a few Korean vampire stories. I wanted to set the book in Asia, and I wanted to not set it in Japan because I'm intimidated by trying to do anything Japanese because there's so much like comic history there, So it's just like Japan adjacent, I guess. I also have some friends from Korea, and they're all very nice people. And so I thought, I'll kill some of them in a comic book.
Yeah. why not kill some of their friends and stuff? Really show them a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
I also really like the black and white aspect. I think that is a perfect atmosphere for like horror comics and things of that nature. How are we going to see this work hand in hand? Is it going to be from different perspectives, or how do you balance the two?
You mean between like what I've got going on with Nerida and what's happening with
with the prose and with the comics? You said there was supplementary comics.
Yeah. So the comic book sort of follows this character named Chung Ho, who's he's a young vampire hunter who doesn't really know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's getting into. He's trying to track down his sister, his twin sister, blah blah blah. There's all the kind of backstory and stuff. And she's been operating as Yuriko's familiar, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
She was raised by the vampire, so she's kind of like the vampire's daughter. So it gets real complicated, mommy issues, that whole thing. But yeah, the case. So this comes from the perspective of the brother Chung Ho tracking the vampire, right? Whereas in the book, you're getting a lot of the vampire's first-person perspective. You're also getting all sorts of concepts, because in the book, it all kind of culminates. It starts in when the Mongol hordes are taking over Asia and then moving into the continent and Europe and all that stuff. And it tracks. It's like spans 500 years, because she's a vampire. She's super old, right? And it comes to it kind of culminates in World War I. So, and it has to do with like werewolves pulling the strings behind how that war got started, and the Black Hand and all the stuff. So there's a lot more like historical things going on, like Tibetan vampire monks that are helping the Mongol hordes take over Europe.
I love the world building so much.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about doing something that's kind of set in Korea or Asia, is that it's not your run-of-the-mill Transylvania thing. You can kind of do whatever you want. So I thought, how did the Mongol hordes take over Europe and almost the whole world? What they had to have had some sort of magic ability. Duh, they had Tibetan vampire monks that they had kept captive to help them, like destroy everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why nobody's.
That would explain why monks never have mirrors up in the place. That would explain it.
Yes.
Real quick, we have
exactly.
Oblivia over on Twitch saying yo, yo, yo. And we have Kamorian King over on YouTube saying yo, boys, throwing some hearts in chat. Welcome to the stream, King. I hope you're having a fantastic day yourself. So we are here to talk about another different book. We're transitioning from vampires to a mermaid. So, another supernatural type of atmosphere. Why switch to mermaids from vampires? What was kind of your inspiration for that?
A friend of mine gave me a book called Gnomes, Elves, and Other Little People. It's like this tome. It's by Thomas Kitely. If you have a chance to pick it up, you should. It reads like nonfiction. It's kind of an encyclopedia about gnomes, fairies, and other little people. And I started reading it, and there were so many different mermaid stories that just like really pulled on the heartstrings, and they really, I don't know, they're awesome. I love like super old stories handed down from generation to generation, whether it's vampires or mermaids or fairies or elves or gnomes or whatever. There's like this secret history behind the human experience that's told through these fantastic creatures and characters. And I wanted to try and kind of make my own take on that. So I took a whole bunch of those stories and all of the different lore, and I tried to combine it into something that is probably totally wrong, but it's mine. So I don't know if it is wrong. I don't know. But yeah, that's where that came from.
So what goes into that? How do you craft that world and put it into your own words and make it your own thing? Well,
for Yuriko, it was easier because it's kind of historical fiction, so I can do some research on what was happening in this place at this time. With Nerida, I've been fumbling along with that for years now, and been like, okay, well, now I've written myself into this corner. Oh, well, there's this that'll solve that problem, so I've kind of created the whole world that's happening, that she exists within as I go, which is probably not the way to do it. You should probably plan it out a little bit better. It would make life easier for me, and next time I think I'll do that. But,
hey, if it works though, right? Like, you got it done.
The way I see it is like you give people glimpses of the stuff, just enough for them to think that there's a whole bunch behind the veil, right? But if you were to pull back the curtain, I don't have the map with the strings and the everything like really planned out. I'm like, yeah, there's a kingdom over there, and there's one over here.
Just don't look behind the bushes. Just
Yeah. There's like if you walk behind the shed,
it's like a stick.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's
stick
kind
to
of
the
like
ground.
I set it up like a movie set for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do try and do enough research and stuff to give it the depth that it needs for what people are reading, because it's set for 10 books, and I'm hoping I can get the whole story arc done in that time frame.
So 10 books. We're talking about book 1 today. Who's the creative team involved on this with you?
Me. There's nobody else. So I wrote
One-man
it,
team.
scripted it. Yeah, I pencils, inks, color, lettering. It's all me.
So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, do you come up with the art idea or the story?
I usually will sketch stuff and be like, oh, this, try and find characters and things, and like, oh, that's a cool looking thing or monster or whatever. How is that gonna play into the story, that kind of thing. So sometimes I'll draw a whole lot first, and then I'll try and write to that. But lately, I've been trying to script out exactly what's going to happen in each book ahead of time, and then I launch into, once I've got all the panels scripted, then I launch into starting to draw it. I've pretty much got all my characters. I know what they look like because I've already illustrated up to like book 6. I haven't colored all the way to book 6, but book 6 is basically, it's like halfway done already. So I know the trajectory, I know who the characters are, what they're doing. There's some things I'm going to go back and change now that I'm kind of, book 1 is out there. I want book 2 to be just as good, if not better. So I'm going to change some things and make some adjustments and make it better than it is right now.
Are you afraid that you might get stuck in like a endless cycle of trying to make the next one better than the previous one?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've only got 10 books, so like the 10th book has to be like, oh, it's gotta be it, Or the 5th book is just her doing a Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind thing, where it's just ethereal and everybody's kind of sitting in a field, and you just kind of in some other zone.
So we have Cam King, also another solo creator, over on YouTube, saying go solo. It has to be awesome to be in full creative control. I mean, do you ever find yourself having trouble like getting motivated to go with it though? Like kind of like, you have the day planned out and you just can't go?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, man, nothing good is hitting the page. Like I can't think about the story or the images or whatever it is. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I think right now I'm just so anxious to work on my own stuff because I've been working on some other things for other writers, and they've hired me to draw for them, and that's great. Just being in an illustration role is awesome because I don't have to worry about the script and I don't have to worry about the world building and all that stuff. I just have to figure out what it looks like and have fun with that.
Yeah,
it's cool. But so when I do get a chance to work on my own thing, I'm like, man, it's go time. You don't have time to dilly dally and be like, I feel kind of sad today. You can't do that.
So it's almost like those imposed like time limits, those time restrictions really help motivate you and catapult you just to get going. That's awesome. We have Cam King saying that's some impressive buffer. Yes, 5 issues ahead of the game is wild. That's so awesome, David. So when what type of mindset do you like to put yourself into when you're creating the story and drawing? Is there any sort of music that you put on or any sort of thing that you do to kind of like set the mood for you?
Yeah, actually, I've been making playlists on Spotify, which anyone can listen to if they want to. For me to listen to while I'm working on a specific book, like I made one for Nerida. I don't know if I made one for a year ago. I definitely will this time around. But I also made one for this book called Dusk Witch, which is set in New Orleans. It's set in New Orleans, but it's also set in this other realm where there's like monster spider bugs that are kind of disgusting. So I made a playlist for that that's like all second line drumming and awesome New Orleans music and just all the stuff that I grew up listening to when my family would go to New Orleans all the time. So yeah, I try to listen to music when I can if my compatriots in my household aren't like, hey, shut up.
Hey, I can relate to that too. I got 3 children myself and a significant other, so it can be kind of hard to get some of the remote time. We have Oblivious saying, tell him to drop the Spotify links. We'll get that updated in the description if we can get our hands on them. So
sure.
No, I think right now it'd be a perfect segue. Let's go ahead, pull up the Kickstarter and see what all the hype is about. So we are looking at Nerida Book 1 Landlocked, currently at $2,479 of a $1,000 goal with 82 backers, 4 days left to go. I was saying this backstage, congratulations on doubling it, almost tripling your goal. How do you feel right now? You said this was your second Kickstarter?
Yeah, I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked that anybody's interested in anything that I'm drawing at all. So if I had barely broken the goal and if got funded and I sold like 10 books, I'd be happy as a clam. Like I'm not, yeah, I'm not complaining at all.
So we were talking backstage and kind of joking around with one another, but what is the you know, what is Nerida? What does that name stand for? What was, you know, the idea for the title?
Nerida is a common mermaid name, apparently, according to my cursory research on the internet.
I need to brush up on my mermaid studying then.
yeah. So I was looking up different names that are associated with. Whoa, there's a hawk outside. It's being chased by another bird. Sorry. It's a cool looking hawk. Anyway, yeah. So there's a bunch of common names that are associated with water or water sprites, nymphs, mermaids, silks, all those different things, and they come from different areas of the world, right? So Nerida, the name I believe comes from the northern part of Europe. It's because like there's mermaid tales from India, Africa, China, like all over the world, right? So based on what her ethnicity is in this book, I didn't want to give her an African mermaid name because there is an African mermaid later on and she's going to have an African mermaid name. I also chose that name after doing some more research to make sure that the band name wasn't chosen yet. So I looked it up to see if there were other comic books that were called Nerida ahead of time, and nope, nobody had taken it. So I was like, it's mine, I'm claiming it.
We have a Cam King saying, crushing it. You have such a unique style. Drew me in instantly. Yes, I love this style. And it's such a unique story, too. You know, we have our main character, and she lost her skin. You know, what happens? Is this something that happens commonly within mermaid stories?
So there's a thing called silkies, right? And they are like a Welsh kind of folklore around mermaids. And yes, the way that they transform into being able to go underwater is they put on what's called a silky, and it's like their mermaid's cloak. And once they put it on, it transforms them into a water-faring creature. And there were stories, a lot of stories, folklore from that area that talk about sailors and things who would find a silky, and they would take the cloak and they would hide it so that the mermaid could never return home to her loved ones, right? So that was kind of that's what got my mind going. If once you read the book, you find out what happens with the silky, and you find out what happens with the old man and all of the stuff, and it's a highly sought after item because in my comic book, in this universe or whatever, it's a very powerful item. Like it contains magic from beneath the waves, right? So other people want it too, and if they get their hands on it, like all hell's gonna break loose, yada yada yada. So it's kind of like the catalyst that starts the whole thing in motion, right? She's just trying to get it back so she can go back with her friends underwater and go home, right? You know. So
I love these interiors so much. Do you do your art traditionally or is it digital?
It's all digital. Yeah.
Wow, this is gorgeous.
I used to do traditional, but man, it takes so long, and I don't have time or space, and it's messy.
So, what are some of the different techniques that you employ when you're, designing these interiors?
Okay, so for Nerida, I didn't have a set pattern for how I was going to lay out my panels. I did know that I wanted to have gutters that are a specific size. I didn't want any hard lines around the gutters. It feels more like, I don't know, feels more ethereal to me or whatever. More tactile, I guess. Because I try not to make it look digital. I want it to look like it was done by hand, you know?
Yeah, it does. It does.
My main reference guide for panel layout and all of that kind of stuff is Akira by Katsuhiro Otomo. I would just if I was having drawn a blank, like, dang, I don't know how should I lay this out so it looks interesting. I've already done so many different shapes and styles of panel layouts. Like, what can I do? Just flip open Akira book 6, and to page 278 and be like, that's awesome. That's perfect. I can have my characters do this and I'll lay it out basically like that. So that's a huge part of what's going on with Nerida in terms of like layout and trying to figure out how to do the interior pages.
Right here is the link. Right here is the link to the Kickstarter, guys. If you are watching, be sure to check this out with us. If you're able to back, we would love to see it, but simply putting this on Facebook and Twitter, anywhere you can put links or any sort of text, Word of mouth is 100% free, and we would love to see this get spread out as far as humanly possible. So let's go ahead and check out some of these covers as well. And we have some gorgeous ones right here. So are these all done up by you as well?
Yeah, those are all done by me.
So cool, man.
The OG cover, that's the one. That's the original one, was her emerging from water. That was really fun.
Red is such an impactful color too. Is there any special symbolism behind this?
I tend to try. So I have a background in printmaking, and I went to school for printmaking. And in printmaking, you usually are trying to not necessarily simplify your colors, but it's a lot about color theory, and it's a lot about trying to find colors that are going to work in concert. And if you're doing screen printing or lithography or intaglio, each color you have to create a whole plate or screen or stone or whatever it is you're going to print, a matrix, right? So you really have to think, okay, I don't need 4 colors. I can probably do it with 2 if I blend them together. So with this cover specifically, I was like, if I do like purples and reds, and I kind of keep it within that color scheme, sometimes it helps to focus the narrative of what the image is when you have it's like less is more,
No, that makes sense.
You can I get overwhelmed, man, when I'm trying to do color stuff. If it's all the colors of the rainbow, I'm like, dang, man, I don't know, tricks for kids. I can't do that.
We have a Cam King saying makes sense to do watercolor for a mermaid comic. I would agree as well. It like adds such a level of atmosphere to it, and I just love how dark it is too. Is this going to be more of a darker story, or what can readers expect?
It's definitely in the like. It's not like Disney's Little Mermaid. It's going to get darker and darker and darker as it goes. There are parts that operate during the daytime, and there is a lot of comedy and stuff in there, but there's a lot of blood and fighting and murder and wars and sex and all kinds of adult themes, right?
That old man better give her back her skin. Some hell's going to break loose.
Yeah. So I would tell you how the whole series ends right now, but I feel like I'd be spoiling it. So,
so right here is the next cover. We have awesome. Like, this is a totally different vibe, a totally different atmosphere. What's going on here? It looks like she's holding the oar.
Yeah, that's an homage to Haruki Samura, the artist who did Blade of the Immortal, and he just has such beautiful painted covers. So I kind of stole a pose from one of his characters from that samurai book, which is one of my favorites of all time. But I transplanted the person and put her in a boat. She's holding an oar, and she's got the boat, the net, kind of fishing net, like in her mouth, which is the same as the original cover from Haruki Samura. And then I tried to do it as like kind of a pop art situation, so it's the dot patterns, it's very Andy Warhol, it's very like splashes of color kind of printed on top of each other. I wanted it to look like a cheap screen print. It's kind of what I'm going for. And
then this Star Wars.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love making her Princess Leia. That's so awesome.
I was just like, man, I don't know what else could I do, because I haven't done any sci-fi stuff at all. And a friend of mine over at Apollo City Comics, Brandon, was like, I've got a sci-fi story. If you want to illustrate it, I'm like, send it to me. If it's cool, yeah, I'd love to. But this was me just kind of messing around. I love Star Wars and Star Trek and all that stuff. So
looks like you would absolutely kill a sci-fi comic. I love this. This whole, it's so immersive. It's fantastic. And then we have, is this a Tank Girl homage?
Yeah, it's total Tank Girl homage. But I took all of the little gugas and details and stuff from the original Tank Girl hacks. She's got pins and things, and I replaced it with all of the mermaid stuff, right? So her earring is a butterfly because she comes across a bunch of fairies. She's got a pin for a cat because she makes friends with this cat who won't leave her alone. There's a little button on the front that's a mermaid. That's the same image from inside the comic. So there's all kinds of weird little like Easter eggs in this imagery.
That is awesome. So let's start checking out some of these reward tiers as well. So you can, we have the net. You can get the digital for $5. How many pages is this altogether?
It's 30. Let's see, 32 pages. It's 28 pages of story, and then I've got, I think, 3 pages of sketchbook stuff at the back, so you can see some pencil drawings from me and that kind of thing.
And then at $10, we have The Fisherman. So this is going to get you one digital PDF and then one physical copy. So for $5 more, you can get a physical. And you said there was over 30 pages of content. So awesome bang for your buck there. We have at $20, The Knife. So this is going to get you that one variant cover with a physical copy and a digital, the Samurai Pop, or the Samura Pop, excuse me. Yeah. We have The Nod, which is going to get you the other variant, the Star Wars variant. And then the Tank Girl variant at 20. So I love how you have all your variants at $20 as well. You know, you didn't go too crazy with the pricing on that. You kept it very reasonable. We have at $40 the Mermaid. So this is going to get you one hell of a package. We have the physical copy of book 1, the variant covers as well. At $49, 18 digital comics. So give us a little bit about the LKC Skinny Dip.
The LKC Skinny Dip is it's like if you want to wet your toes into the whole LKC catalog. So you can, if you want to go for that one, you're going to get a digital copy of all of the LKC books in PDF format. So you can get caught up on, you know, Either Us or Them. You can get Bigfoot Knows Karate. It's a horror show. Tank McGregor. It's got the Yuriko book in there. It's got both Tights issues. It's got all the LKC, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is Mark's whole kind of pantheon of his diaspora of what's going on with his stuff. And you get a digital copy of Nerida as well. So it's a great, if you want to get acquainted with the LKC stuff, that's a pretty good way to go.
We've had Dan Price on the show multiple times, and it's funny because Tights, that was like the first indie comic I ever bought when I started doing this. So some familiar faces in there. And then we have the LKC Coral Drive at 74, so 10 physical books, so pretty much the same idea, except 8 less. You're getting 10 of those in physical editions as well, and then you get Nerida as well. So some awesome bang for your buck. You can then get the 18 physical books for 150, and then that's all of it. We have some awesome add-ons as well. So we have Eureka Book 1, Book 1 signed at 25, and then we have Nerida sketch cover as well. And then you have some. That's just
that sketch cover. That's just an image of an actual drawing that I did on paper, so people can see, like, oh, this dude can draw. But if you get a sketch cover from me, I will draw whatever you want, because I can't reprint pictures of Thanos fighting Rogue, but I can draw it as many times as I want. Send it to you in the mail, you know.
And then at 25, we have a shirt. So what's this shirt? Is this something that's like kind of a familiar image or a cover within Yuriko?
Yeah, that's the cover for Yuriko Book 1. And I had this funny idea. I ran it by my daughter and my wife, and I was like, what if I printed this on a t-shirt? Do you think chicks would wear it? And they were both like, yeah, totally.
And then we have the Nerida t-shirt as well. So some awesome add-ons here. Oh man, Dave, this is such an awesome campaign. Guys, if you're watching right here is the link to check it out with us. Be sure to back it. If you can't back, put it on Twitter or Facebook, anywhere you can. Word of mouth is 100% free and you have nothing to lose. So David, after going through that campaign, for anyone who might be on the fence about backing, what would you like to say to them directly to kind of help push them over that fence?
I would like to say thanks for even looking at it and paying attention at all, because I've been just trying to get people's attention for a long time. There are virtually there is no way that this book won't show up if you do back it. So I know that that's an issue with a lot of people. They're like, oh, the book might not get made, you know, after it gets funded, then they pay the artist, then the artist works on something, and then the artist craps out because artists are crappy. That's not going to happen because I'm the artist and I know exactly how crappy I am. And I've already finished the book. It's in the can. It's done. It's ready to go. I've even actually already ordered the comics, so they're coming.
Wow.
What I would really love to happen is have so many orders flood in that I was like, oh my God, I got overwhelmed at the last minute and I have to order more comics. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, so the comics are already on the way. If you want one, you should get one.
And you can get one by backing this campaign today. So David, thank you so much for swinging by, hanging out with us, and breaking down this awesome book. Before we let you go, though, I always love asking for a little bit of advice. So for anyone out there who's having trouble building up some world building, you know, what would be some of your advice to help them kind of put some of those stakes up, you know, where you don't look too deep, you kind of just see a bush planted in the ground, and that gives you the illusion that there's world building out there?
So world building needs to serve the story, right? So if you've got a script for a comic book, and you say, okay, this needs to happen at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that's the quick story arc. And then in there, as you're going, you're like, oh no, they need to be in this place, and this needs to happen. This certain thing needs to happen, whatever it is. That's when the world building thing comes into play, right? If your character is going to get robbed in an alley, but it's in some sci-fi realm on another planet or something like that, while they're on the spaceship and they haven't gotten to the alley yet, you don't need to figure out what's happening in the entire world where they're going to land. You really only need to figure out what's going on in that alley and what that alley looks like, right? So it's all about perspective, because people can only see as far as you let them see in your comic book. So for me, for world building, backstory is great, and you can get lost in that. So just don't get tangled in that. My daughter gets lost in her backstories all the time, and I tell her, I'm like, is that helping anybody? Is anybody ever going to know that other than you? And it's fun for her, but it also distracts from getting the thing done. So.
That has to feel awesome as a father too, to see that kind of like passed down.
Oh man, yeah, dude, it's so awesome. She just sits around and draws all day and doesn't do her homework, doesn't do any chores. Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's a great time. So David, yeah, well, what's next for you in 2023 after this book successfully funds? What else are you working on?
I've got a book with Morgan Quaid called Dusk Witch that is hopefully we're in talks with Scout Comics like right now. See if that can actually end up on some stores and some shelves. That would be really, really cool. I've got another book called Big Game Saga about a ninja who gets transported to the future for various reasons, and he's on the run from some guys who are hunting him. That one is with a guy named Bill Poor. I'm super stoked about that. I'm just the illustrator on that one. Then I've got Yuriko Book 2 coming out this summer. I'm also going to be doing 3 cons in the next 2 months.
Wow, so busy.
I'm going to be at the Comic Arts San Antonio, the Casa Comic Con. That's free. If you're from San Antonio or that area, you should come check it out. I'm going to be at the Central Texas Comic Con in Waco with my buddy Ray Garza, who does Tank McGregor, which is another LKC book. And then I'm going to be at, where am I going to be? Oh yeah, Comic Palooza in Houston, and that's at the end of May. And that's going to be, yeah, that one's going to be a big one. They've got the entire Arrowverse showing up, so.
Oh wow.
Big fans. Yeah.
Wow, let's go. I actually have not seen a single episode of Arrow, but let me give you the illusion. let me put this push up so you guys pretend that I am. No, Dave, this has been such an awesome sit down. Thank you for swinging by. Everyone watching, here is the link to check out this awesome campaign. Be sure to back it today, and if you can't, simply putting it on Facebook and Twitter works just as good, and getting in as many eyes on this as possible is what we're trying to do. So that being said, it is time for us to wrap up. I hope you all have a fantastic Thursday afternoon, but most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.